Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is Brian Hamm, and I'm the professor of accounting at the Gies College of Business. And on behalf of the college and our department, welcome to the webinar. As a faculty member and a 1995 Illinois accounting grad, I know firsthand the value of the Gies education. It prepared me to pass the CPA exam and was instrumental in accelerating my career. I began my career at PwC, and I moved on and worked for companies such as Pepsi Americas, Energizer, and TruGreen. I was the CFO of Energizer and TruGreen before joining the faculty at Gies in the fall of 2018. Now, as a faculty member, I'm even more aware of the intentional focus our department provides in delivering an education that prepares tomorrow's leaders for success. We know that accounting is the language of business, and that makes us a profession with several career paths. The demand for well-prepared CPAs is strong, and the opportunities continue to grow. At Gies, our goal is to prepare students to make the most of these opportunities. And part of that is making sure that you know the wide variety of career paths available to accounting graduates. And that's our goal tonight, to give you a chance to hear about the careers available to those who have earned an MAS, an MSA, or IMSA degree from Gies. Often, a lot of our focus is on careers within audit, and these are awesome opportunities and a path that I personally followed. However, the value of an accountancy foundation and the experiences and skills gained within the Gies Accounting graduate program open up even more career paths. There are many organizations who want true business partners and advisors who have the expertise to provide informed guidance and recommendations for better decision-making. Our MAS, MSA, and IMSA programs prepare graduates for those advisory and client service roles. But you don't have to take it from me. Tonight, you're going to hear from 4 recent Gies accountancy graduates. They'll share their career paths and answer your questions about the opportunities available and what it takes to be successful. And before we begin our panel discussion, I want to cover a few housekeeping items related to the Q&A portion of today's session. Please submit all your questions via the Zoom Q&A feature at the bottom right of your Zoom menu. Your questions will be submitted publicly for the whole audience to see. In order to develop a consensus around the questions, please use upvoting. The upvoting thumb is located next to the question in the Q&A window. We'll bring the top questions to the panel to answer following our presentation. And any general housekeeping questions will be answered in text by the Gies team working in the background. But please note, questions submitted via chat will not be taken. So we need to use the Q&A feature. So with those technical details covered, I'd like to welcome our panelists and ask each of them to introduce themselves. And so Kaylee Bastine, can you go ahead and kick us off?
Yes. Hey everyone, my name is Kaylee Bastian. I graduated with my master's in accounting from University of Illinois in 2020. And I have since moved to Dallas and work for PricewaterhouseCoopers in international tax currently.
Awesome. Thanks, Kaylee. Darian, over to you.
Hey everybody, good evening. My name is Daryl Wiggs. Likewise, I graduated in 2020 from the MAS program with concentration in real estate. I am a CPA. I had the luxury of studying throughout the MAS program and accomplished those requirements. And I used to work at EY. I'll elaborate on that a little later, but I spent most of my first year of my career as an auditor at Ernst & Young, and now I'm back home in the south suburbs of Chicago where I live and I'm from. So looking forward to sharing and talking and answering any questions that you all may have today.
Awesome. Thanks. Colin, now to you.
Hi, my name is Colin Hamm. Like Darian and Kaylee, I graduated in 2020 with a concentration in data analytics. I worked my first year at PricewaterhouseCoopers, but now I do M&A consulting for Deloitte here in Chicago.
Thanks, Colin. How about you, Mia?
Sure. Hey, everyone. So very similar to everyone, I also graduated from the MS program back in 2020. A little bit different. I actually did my undergrad at Illinois State University and graduated there with my bachelor's of accounting, and then started full time with PwC in their deals practice, also doing M&A diligence. And it's been just over a year. So yeah, looking forward to answering some of you guys' questions.
Awesome. Thanks, all you guys. So this first question is for all of you. And so I'd like for all of you to take a turn at answering. And it's interesting, you all chose different career paths after graduating from Gies. And can you describe your role in your current career and why you chose the career path that you did? And so Mia, why don't you go ahead and get started?
Sure, yeah. So I guess when I was kind of going through the motions, I did a couple of internships. So my first internship was with the internal firm services at PwC. So it was all internal, no client facing, and then led me to another internship where I actually did have the opportunity to do an audit internship. And after kind of, doing my audit internship, right after I went and did an internship that is now where I started full time. And that's in the transaction services. You'll hear it called M&A, mergers and acquisitions, also called deals. So Colin and I kind of do the same thing, just at two of the different big fours. And, essentially kind of having those different experiences, I think I really was drawn more towards deals specifically because, I kind of saw in my audit internship a very narrow view of the financial statements of the company as a whole. I was tasked with a couple of accounts and really honed in on those details. And as opposed to my internship in deals, I really was able to look at the company as a whole and look overall, margins, trends, what's happening with this company. Is it something that you can see, really being successful in the future? We try not to really do as much of, like predictions. We're trying not to trend too far into the future, but I think that what really drew me to it was just the variety of different things that you can see company to company, like depending on what it is their actual business does, it could be so different, even if the financial statements at the end of the day all kind of look the same.
Awesome. How about you, Darian?
Yeah, so I started my career off as an insurance staff at Ernst & Young within their FSO department, which pretty much stands for financial services. I chose the audit route mostly because, like most of you maybe, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do directly after graduating. When I started off at U of I in 2015, I was in the DGS program, so I transferred into the College of Business. And I was on the fence always about accounting and finance. And when I heard about Ernst & Young having the duo program where I can do audit within the financial services, I thought I could get the best of both worlds of working within the financial industry and doing audit at the same time. So I was insurance staff. So at EY, what they have is this thing FSO, which focuses mostly on financial services. They have banking industry, insurance, and wealth asset management. So I was within a wealth asset management company sector. And I worked mostly with private equity companies, hedge funds, and mutual funds, and I did audits for those. So that's kind of where I started off in my career. Like I said, I chose the audit path mostly because I didn't know what I wanted to do. But when you hear about audit, it's mostly advertised as the route, to the way it was advertised to me was kind of like the best route to take if you don't know what you want to do, because it accelerates the process of like learning the ins and outs of companies. So that's what I did for the first 12 months. And then once I kind of figured out what I wanted to do, I made a transition, and I'll elaborate a little bit on it later. But over the last few weeks, I recently made a job change to the tech side. So started with audit, but now I'm within tax.
Awesome. Colin, what attracted you to audit and then to make a change?
Yeah, similar to Darian, if you don't really know what you want to do, kind of audit is the path that gets pushed. Excuse me. And speaking to a lot of friends and family, audit was just kind of the natural career progression. However, after doing a busy season in audit, along with two internships, one with PwC and then one with a smaller accounting firm, I kind of just decided that a lot of the work that you were doing in audit is kind of, to elaborate on what Mia said, was a lot of, account focused, not very specific, and not really thinking about a business use case for a lot of the things. And through discussions with some family and friends, I found this M&A services, deal services, whatever you like to call it, and that focuses on big picture and kind of solving problems for your clients, and helping them make big decisions about the future of their business. So that was something that really interested me, and it ultimately led me to change careers.
Okay. Kaylee, what attracted you to tax?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed my tax classes in college because I thought it was really cool to try to get into IRS's mind or the government's mind to see why are they taxing some things and what do they want to promote, what do they want to stop. So I just loved my tax classes, honestly, and did an internship in a small startup company in Austin my sophomore year, and then did an internship in tax with Pricewaterhouse in Dallas, and really enjoyed the group. I'm in international tax, and it's a smaller group of 20 people. And so right out the gate, my first year of public accounting has been really cool because I'm like acting in senior associate level even the first year, and I've gotten to work on like consulting projects and a lot of different projects that you wouldn't if you're in a bigger group. So I just always really enjoy tax and the international part of it, studying abroad, wanting to go into that, and concentrated in international, and just wanted to go in the tax route.
That's awesome. And it's super cool because we talk so much about, a career path and audit. And like I said earlier, it's the one that I went down, but just hearing about your experiences and how kind of that Gies education and training and studying abroad and things like that, it's attractive to employers, right? And so it's going to open up a lot of doors. And so, hey, Darian, you had mentioned you had recently made a career change. Can you talk about that and why you made the change and what you're doing now?
Yeah, so what made me make the change was, like I mentioned a few times, like I never knew what I wanted to do and still don't, to be honest. But I interned with EY for 3 summers in audit. And I did a full year as a staff within audit, and I kind of knew what was like coming up next. And to be honest, I just wasn't excited and passionate about exactly what I was doing. So after a long, busy season, I decided to start reaching out to other alumni in my LinkedIn network. And I remember during the MAS program, a speaker named Carter Cofield had came and spoke to us. And I reached out to him, and luckily I was able to get like dinner with him and talking to him and seeing someone like in the same shoes as me. So he started off at KPMG. And after 2 years, he decided that audit wasn't a route for him. And that's when he went on to start his own advisory practice, and it went from $100,000 company to over 3 million within a 2-year span. And he offered to be my mentor and sit down with me and walk me through how he got there. So just sitting down with him over the last few months and kind of picking through someone's brain who's doing something I'm potentially interested in kind of lead me to think about other routes outside of audit. And I just happened to keep reaching out to folks. And now I'm found another alumni from U of I who graduated from MAS program, who started his own tax practice, and he's has less than 10 employees. And I happen to get a great opportunity to work with him. So now I'm a lead tax preparer, where I pretty much review tax returns for individuals. And I'm using my concentration from the MAS program, which is real estate. So essentially review small business tax returns for companies within the real estate industry. So I kind of made that switch mostly because I just wanted something different. I wanted to take a bet on myself, and coming from the MAS program, you get a wide variety of classes from like different industries and sectors within accounting. And I just had the confidence to go out and just do something different this early in my career. So that's pretty much my change.
I love how you mentioned that alumni network, and it's real, not only for the entire university, but also within our Gies family. Is that, I know that I maintain connections and contacts with a core group that I graduated with, and I know that I reach out to them often for advice and things like that. And so I love to hear that you're doing the same. Kaylee, so when someone's thinking about a career in tax, it's more than just filing a tax return. I mean, clients, and I know that I did this at Energizer, is that I want a lot more, and it's strategic and it's advisory. So can you talk about kind of what clients are looking for and some of those strategic and consulting services that you're providing at PwC?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because another reason that I got drawn to taxes, you're directly helping the client and they're looking to you to save them money and to structure their deals or these business transactions that they're doing in a way that they don't get taxed as much, therefore saves them money and helps their better bottom line. So I work really closely with clients, email relationship like that. And it's really cool because half my group is basically a CPA and half of them has their their law degree, because it's tax law, but also the accounting aspect of it. And that's where I come in. But basically, we see what is the best vehicle to set your company up as, or what is the best investment so that it doesn't trigger tax. So whether that be a partnership or an LLC, LLP, or corporation. And we do that for international investors as well as investors in the US that invest abroad. So we mainly help hedge funds and the corporation, but then also the investors within the corporation that triggers tax implications as well.
Yeah, I know during my time at Energizer, tax was very, very strategic. And so I relied on my PwC tax partner and advisory team. And it's not just the US. It's not enough that you just have to know the US code. I mean, it's global. And that is super exciting. We did some cool things that saved a lot of money and allowed us to put cash to work in a very tax efficient manner. And so it's awesome that you're getting that experience.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing is, a recent consulting project I was on was basically looking up treaties in the US and seeing what each implication was, treaty by treaty and country by country. So it is an educational experience for sure.
Awesome. Hey, Colin, can you compare and contrast audit to your current M&A consulting role, and also comment about how the MAS program at Gies really helped you to be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. So with an audit, I think it's been mentioned, but you kind of focus on a specific account balance, and you kind of focus on one specific client, and you kind of go through the rotations with that client. And your schedule is also very predictable. You're busy for a few months, January through March, and then for the remainder of the year, you're kind of working on things like controls, some interim testing, things of that nature. And it's very structured roles, very structured workflows. For example, a lot of the things that you're going to do are laid out, and you'll hear this kind of term as you kind of progress in accounting. If you do choose an audit path, just the same as last year, you'll kind of just follow the same path that people did last year. So that kind of takes a completely different turn in M&A, where every deal is completely different. You're working with completely different data sets, and you're really having to work on tight timelines to help find solutions for your client. And then to touch on the point about how the MAS program really helped me in my role, I believe it was instrumental in helping me get this new role within Deloitte's M&A practice, as I had the concentration in data analytics, and that was looked very highly upon. As you know, we transitioned to a digital world. It's very important to be able to navigate large data sets and also have experience with things that are taught within the MAS program, like Python and like Tableau. Employers look very fondly upon that, and it's very useful to be able to navigate those tools to help progress your career, and also especially these entry-level jobs where you're doing a lot of work directly with the data.
Awesome. Thanks, Colin. Mia, what's a day in the life like as a deals advisory associate?
Yeah, so really similar. Colin and I think basically do the same thing, just two different places. But the way I always boil it down to, since a lot of people aren't as familiar with the deals practice as a whole, is you think of large transactions in recent times, like Facebook buying WhatsApp or Instagram, right? There's a whole process that goes before and after the actual deal closes. So, a day in a life for me is very different day to day. It could be anything from, communicating to our clients to make sure that we're staying on track for our deadlines. Similar to what Colin kind of said too, within the audit practice, you can be on, one client for months at a time. Whereas in that time frame, I could be on 4 or 5 different clients, projects, all within different industries, all having their own nuances as well. So I think, there is a little bit more of a rush, and it's not as planned out. So I think sometimes you'll kind of think one thing and then you actually get into the data and you see how the things are going, and you come back with questions about why certain trends are going a certain way, and it really kind of helps you feel like you're getting to the story, the root, not to really kind of hammer down on any one client or reason, but really to just try and understand the business and the trends that you are seeing. So I think kind of to retouch on Colin's point as well, something that really helped me also was the data analytics concentration. And I think that, my group, we don't use Python like every single day, right? And learning it was not the easiest, I will say, but I think the syntax and kind of the motions that you go through, the way you're understanding the language, even just in Excel, like you do pick up a lot of things in a lot of different ways to solve problems. Because I think, we all do these different jobs, but at the end of the day, right, we're all here to solve some type of problem. And I think you build those problem solving skills with the other curriculum. And then also specifically, I would say like the data analytics track as well.
Yeah. So a couple of things that you mentioned, the variety in clients is definitely different than maybe an audit career, where I know in audit, when I was there, I had 2 clients, and kind of every year it was doing the 10Qs, the 10Ks and things like that for those 2 clients. But it sounds like, you're getting exposure to a lot of different clients, maybe in different industries, and no day is the same. And that's cool, especially for someone that likes the variety. And I bet it's constant learning, right? So you didn't stop learning just when you graduated from the MAS. You're constantly learning, I bet.
Yeah, no, it's an everyday learning situation. I will say, looking at the end result, right, always looks the same. We package it, everything looks the same at the end of the day, but depending on the type of industry the client is in, or the target is in, it really will be different on what you're really even focusing on. So like if it's a people business, you probably won't be as concerned with inventory because they probably don't have inventory, right? So that's not something that you even are thinking about. But then the next company that you work for, they're manufacturing, and like the main story there is their inventory and how quickly it's turning. So I think, it really is it keeps you on your toes, but also gives you an opportunity to, like I said, learn different ways to solve those core problems that our clients are really concerned with.
Yeah, and I'm glad you and Colin both mentioned data analytics, because that's an area where Gies has invested heavily, and I think is a big differentiator for us. Is that we've made a significant investment in data analytics, and you guys we're seeing it real life of how it plays out and benefits you and Colin, and I know Kaylee and Darian, and so I'm glad you guys mentioned that. Hey, just a quick housekeeping item. Remember, if you have a question for the panelists, as soon as we're done in about 10 or 15 minutes with our presentation, please post it in the Q&A on Zoom, and we'll make sure that we get to your questions. Okay, so this question's for all of you. And so I'll start with Darian. When you look back at your MAS experience, which classes or skills that you gained do you think are most beneficial for you to be a success, and not only within assurance, but as you transition to your new role?
Yeah, so in terms of classes and like experiences, when I first read the question, the first thing came to my head was just getting involved. I spent my time as an RA when I was at U of I most of the time, and just getting those type of leadership experiences up front and getting used to like stepping out of your comfort zone and being placed in uncomfortable positions essentially like helped me grow not only as a student, but like professionally. Like now I can sit in the room with the CEO, the manager, a partner, and be the only staff in the room and be confident because of that experience, because I set myself in those positions. In terms of classes, I feel like once you get past like senior year, and especially like the MAS program, majority of the classes are like targeted towards like what you're going to do after college. I feel like most of the classes I was put in terms of like the financial statement analysis classes, the audit classes, the tax classes, like all of those, not only were they like directly correlated to the CPA exams, but they also placed me in the best position possible, I feel like, to be comfortable with adjusting to some of the real world scenarios I was placed in when I started my career at UI. So yeah, definitely the classes, I highly recommend them. My favorite part about them is just when I took a few audit classes during the MAS program. And the moment I got to EY, we were using some of the same software. So that was great to just have that exposure and experience, and also have the resources, the professors and other students in the same position as you to ask questions, get them out the way early. So
That's, that's awesome. And so I know that one of the things we focus in on a lot is group work. And so being able to interact with diverse students across Gies from all around the world, right? And so that's one of the things that's awesome. I know in my ACCU 517 class, group work is a big part of that course, and also just opportunities and getting involved outside the classroom is part of what makes Gies special.
No, I was going to say I wasn't the biggest fan of group work when I was a student, but once I started working, I realized that was one of the best parts about the education here. Because in reality, as an auditor or anything within accounting, for the most part, you're going to work with groups. So get used to it, get comfortable, and just continue to figure out ways you can contribute to the group projects.
Awesome. Kaylee, how about you? Well, looking back at your MAS experience, what things do you think set you up for success?
I was going to touch on the group work as well, because there's a lot of projects. I still remember my Southwest presentation in your class and reference it all the time. But being able to present in front of people, and also being able to have such a personal relationship with your professors, because it is smaller classes and all of them are so dedicated to teaching, and they know you're here to learn, especially at the master's level. So I really like the personal aspect of getting to know your professors so you can learn as much as possible out of their classes. And then the other thing I was going to touch on was coupling it with CPA studying, and how the MAS just like really sets you up for success with passing the CPA and getting that knowledge that you need that aligns with the classes and the sections you'll be studying for. So my master's year was so beneficial with getting that certification, and then just learning so much that I've now brought into my career. And what you were saying, Darian, about how important it is to work with other people, like that's a very important aspect of your career, of like trying to see how managers manage or how certain coworkers like to work. So to be able to have such a wide variety of people in your classes in the MAS experience and work with them and learn how to adapt to that.
Yeah, Kaylee was one of my students in ACCU 517, financial statement analysis and valuation. And the groups pretend and take the role of a management team and pitch their company to a group of analysts and also investors. And to make it fun, I even invested in Southwest Airlines and the other company. And so Kaylee's group helped make me some money. So how about you, Mia? So if you think about your MAS career, what stood out to help make you a success?
Yeah. So like I kind of mentioned, I think right in the beginning, I actually did my undergraduate at Illinois State. So I think, the MAS year was super helpful. Like kind of Kaylee said, you do have so much more time to kind of focus on other things. If CPA is something that you're interested in and obviously encouraged to do, right, you have the time to sit down and do that. I won't say that the coursework is necessarily easier in that spot, but I think, at that point, you're not going into like, okay, what are the journal entries? Like you're looking at a bigger, broader view of what you're doing. And I think kind of what everyone said as well. I think the biggest thing is genuinely just learning how to talk to other people and learning how to present. And I don't mean like, undergraduate, maybe you'll have note cards, right? And like, when you're saying it and what the next thing is, it's really to come up on the fly if something is asked in like a question portion with your professor or a student, and really, getting to know the way that you're comfortable speaking to other people and your learning and, speaking style as well. Because I will say that that's something that was huge that I immediately noticed when I did come to Illinois, was how everyone was just so ready to like pass back and forth to other people. Like they kind of knew the drill. It was very different, I feel like, from my undergraduate experience, where people are still using note cards, and, in the real life, right? Someone asks you a question. Are you even just talking to somebody and explaining your work and what you did, why you thought something? You're not having note cards in front of you. So I really feel like, as much as you can, even now in your classes, to challenge yourself, to come up with ways that, you do feel comfortable with speaking, because I think that is something that will help you with interviews. It's something that'll help you with your career. And it's something you'll never get away, never ever get away with. So I think that if you start practicing those skills now, soft skills, I think that would be great. And I definitely think the MAS program gives a ton of opportunities in your class and outside to practice.
Yeah, I agree 100%. As a communication presentation skills, being able to make numbers come to life, even for those that aren't accounting or finance folks, but be able to make those numbers come to life, to turn that into action and strategy. I think all of the group work and enforcing the presentations upon you guys, I think it really helps prepare you guys for success. Colin, how about you?
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off what Mia said, is from a communication standpoint, when you get into the working world, you'll find that, some people don't know how to communicate the best. But, with the experience of constantly having to present, and that having to be a huge part of the curriculum within the MAS program, it's very beneficial whether you're communicating with a client or, whether you're communicating with your team and trying to set expectations. Some of the soft skills that you learn through the MAS program are very helpful in doing that. And then another thing, the CPA. I believe that the MAS program sets you up incredibly well for the CPA. I know Mia kind of touched on, there's a little bit of extra flexibility, but when you're in the MAS program, your entire focus is accounting. So your professors are very understanding of what you have going on and some of the stresses that come with the CPA, and also that your main focus is the CPA at that point. And also there's nuances that you learn within the MAS program that aren't touched on in other accounting courses. For example, the one specific MAS class discusses fair value hedging, which is a very nuanced accounting topic that does get discussed on the CPA. So just having that background knowledge just makes going through the CPA process just so much easier. And then when you get into the working world, some of the topics you kind of pick up on from the MAS program, and your ability to just kind of catch on to nuanced accounting topics is really heightened because of the experience you've gained and the knowledge that you were able to pick up on in the MAS program that others may not have had the opportunity to do so.
Awesome. So one more question before we open it up to the panel or the audience's question. And so I want all of you to address this one, and I'll keep with you, Colin. So if someone is listening in, joining our webinar, and they're on the fence, do I continue on after undergrad and get my MAS or MSA or IMSA, continue on in that program? But they're feeling, audit's not right for me, maybe, or, maybe I want to do something different. So any advice as they're trying to make that decision, not only to continue their education, but also whether or not Gies is the right place for them?
So with regards to if following the audit path, reach out to your network. That would be my biggest piece of advice. When I looked to make my career change, I reached out to my network to kind of explore other opportunities, go to career fairs, things of that nature, speak to these recruiters, because a lot of the areas that we are in, myself, Mia, Darian, and Kaylee, there's high demand for accounting professionals in areas that aren't audit, because, as we've seen over the past year, the world's changed a lot. And there's demand in areas that there used not to be. So having that experience from the MAS program is going to set you apart from other prospective candidates. And I believe that's a big selling point. And also, hey, if you're not from Illinois, we got a hell of a basketball team. So that's
there you go. There you go. Big win last night. So Mia, any advice for someone thinking about, boy, do I want to continue on, and whether or not Gies is the right place for me?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very important question. I feel like I asked myself at a certain point where I was like, do I stay at Illinois State, or do I try to make this jump into a new school where I literally know nobody at the age where I don't even have friends from undergrad. And, thankfully Darian and I had a class together the first semester, and I was like, okay, I know someone here, like we can be friends. But I really think that, I think it was the right choice for me. And I really think that it, like kind of Colin said, right? And I think maybe people are thinking too, like, how do I build that network? I have met so many people post-grad and even while I was there that just by saying I'm at Illinois, right? It's not like, oh, you're only there for 1 year, right? I am, an Illini. I'm an alumni. A lot of my group right now is made up of IU, Illinois, a lot of Big Ten schools, and just, immediately making a connection with somebody, it can be a little bit challenging at times. And I think that, I've had conversations that are just like, they flow so well because immediately we're just like, oh yeah, you went to Illinois. Like we're on the same page. We know the same places. I think it's a really good icebreaker. And I do think that, I even had my job lined up going into my MAS year too. So it wasn't necessarily like I was using it to look for a job while I was there, but I do have a ton of friends who came, from other schools as well that they did, and they were able to get jobs with great places like BDO, Deloitte, KPMG. So I really think, there's a variety. And then I think the last thing I'll touch on is almost kind of like the last question as well. Something I forgot to mention is that Illinois has a huge international population, which is amazing because as you might have seen, and once you'll see when you get into, the working world, that you're talking with people from all over the place. So learning and building that cultural intelligence and even just learning, different communication styles is huge. Not every school has that population and the ability to collaborate in classes and learn from other cultures. So I really thought that was, on top of everything I already said, like a great reason why I'm happy I chose Illinois.
I agree 100%. Is that I think what's one of the things that makes Gies unique and it makes it very, very special is that I loved part of my career of leading a global organization, and by getting some of that exposure and experience, while you're still in the undergrad and then master's program, it just sets you up for success. And so I know that I've learned a lot, and you can take those experiences, with you for the rest of your life. Darian, what advice do you have for folks trying to make the decision?
I guess the best advice, well, I want to start off saying similar to Mia, or just in general, like I didn't want to do the MAS program at first. I was just ready to be out of school.
You and I talked about it.
Yeah, I was ready to be out. I was ready to start making money and just get into the workforce. And after talking to Brian and my family convinced me to stay. And I think that's one of the best decisions I made. The biggest reasons why is because of the CPA. If you're like me or anybody, and you're kind of on the fence, like, hey, I don't know if I'm gonna pass, I don't know if I'm gonna do it. Being in an environment like this, like U of I during the MAS program, was the ideal situation for me. I had every single resource I needed to study for the CPA. If I had a question, I would go to Michael for text. I would go to Brian for FAR. I had auditor teachers. Like it was a great program in the sense of I felt like the classes are like perfectly, at least in my opinion, aligned with the CPA exams. And professors know that if that's something you want to do, like it's time in the schedule for you to make that happen. So for me, I guess if you're on the fence about it and you're considering taking the CPA, biggest advice would be just I recommend you knocking the CPA out now, because once you start working, let's say you do go to the big four, accounting firms, and busy season hits and you're working 12 hours a day, like it's kind of hard to throw that in your schedule on top of seeing family and friends and just trying to have a life. So MAS program for me was just an extra year to not only just make myself more marketable in the workforce, I was able to knock out the CPA courses and I was able to learn a ton. Like I said, now I'm a lead tax preparer, but I focused on audit the whole time. But doing the MAS program, now I'm able to go into my more advisor position with confidence because I took Brian's class on financial statement analysis. I focused on audit, but I took Michael's class on tax, and that gave me the background that I need and the confidence to pass reg, and it helps me in my everyday life now. So it's a big addition, and I recommend it now. If you're in a position to do it, highly recommend you do it.
Awesome. Kaylee, what do you got?
I was going to talk about the CPA as well. So Darian, I totally agree with you. You're in the mentality of you're here for school, you're already studying. I know so many people in my group that are now have kids and they're older and they're trying to get their CPA because they want to get promoted, and you can't within the Big Four if you don't have your CPA. So for me to get a graduate degree and pass all 4 sections in the same year was a very wise career choice for me. And a lot of times nowadays, if you do want to be a manager or climb up within your business or current position, then you might be considering like an MBA or anything like that. But with us having our masters already, I feel as though that's a very big leg up to where you already have a grad degree and have that behind your name. And I also wanted to say, like, moving to Texas and being around people who probably have never even been to Illinois or like heard of it. University of Illinois is widely known within the nation because of our accounting program, of being one of the top ones. So whenever I'm like, yeah, I'm from Illinois, and they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, I went to University of Illinois, and they're like, oh yeah, we've heard of U of I. So it's nice street creds for sure. And the education is just unrivaled. So I would promote masters at U of I for sure.
Awesome. I think you mentioned earlier, the smaller class size and the access to faculty. That's real, and I think it's also a differentiator for Gies. And I know my average class size is anywhere from 20 to 30 students, and the fact that you've reached out to me and Darian's reached out to me. Mia, unfortunately, you didn't take my class, and Colin, he's my son. He's smart. He's smart enough not to take my class. But anyway, the faculty cares, and they want to help. They want to provide advice, not only on the CPA exam, but career advice and things like that. And if they don't know the answer, they're going to get you in contact with either another faculty member or an alumni to get your questions answered. Right. So great. Thanks you guys so much for answering my questions. Now let's turn it over to the audience. And the first question that we got, I'm interested in learning if or how the skills in data analytic concentration are applied in the M&A transaction setting. And so Mia and Colin, you guys get that one. And can you give an example of applying data analytics in tax? Okay. So Mia, you want to start off? And so interested in learning how the skills in data analytics concentration are applied in the M&A transaction setting.
Yeah, so I think I kind of mentioned before, right? My group doesn't necessarily use Python. We do use Alteryx. So it's kind of a variety of a variation of Excel. I just like to say it's Excel with pictures because it kind of just does the same thing as Excel, but you use different tools and kind of tell it what to do. But I will say that, day to day, just even in the classes, right? And your data analytics classes, you get taught certain things. You go run through the motions on like how to run if formulas. And in the beginning, a lot of it does seem a little familiar to Excel if you have had, Excel courses. But I think at some point, right, they kind of like let the leash go and you're just sent off to like do these projects, group projects, right? So at that point, it's really like, how do I apply this knowledge? And the same thing happens when you're in a work setting, right? You get your training, you get told like very high level what things are, and then you get sent off on your first project and you're like, okay, how can I do this, right? It's obviously not going to be like an immediate click, but I think you do start to pick up on things. And I think having the experience of, being taught specifically like data language, because a lot of it is super similar to other coding languages. So whether or not you're actually using Python, like we don't, I use Excel a ton. We use Alteryx, and a lot of the same syntax of the language that you're using is similar. So it's not like, someone tells me, oh, go run this in Excel. And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. It's like, oh, I can draw from that prior knowledge. I know a little bit. I might not know exactly how to do it, but I understand what it's going to do and I can see the output.
Great. Colin, you got anything to add?
Yeah, kind of just picking back off some of the things that Mia said. I don't also use I don't use Alteryx in my current role on a day-to-day basis. However, I use Tableau very frequently, and that's a very nuanced tool that you do gain exposure to in the MAS program. And to kind of just add to some of the things that Mia said, although you may not be using some of the tools you'll learn in the MAS program on a day-to-day basis, the skills that you learn give you confidence to move forward and be able to project an outcome in your mind of what you want a data set to look like, and to kind of be able to work with that data in whatever tool your firm may use. And additionally, like I previously mentioned, as you're starting your career, a lot of the work you're going to be doing is manipulating data and working with large data sets. And you'll find that the skills, that's a big focus in the MAS program within the data analytics concentration is working with big data sets and cleaning the data and manipulating the data to a way that it can be worked with and function properly for whatever purpose you may have.
Okay, thanks. Kaylee or Darian, data analytics in the tax world.
Well, nothing on my end so far, considering I just started. But mostly Excel, like everyone else, and it's also a different type of tax softwares out there. So the one that I'm currently using is called the Drake tax software. So I'm learning how to use that now. We didn't necessarily work with it here at U of I, but just having the foundation, the tax foundation, makes it a lot easier for me to go into the software and actually understand the way things flow through different schedules and stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, we use Alteryx a lot in my group to standardize the processes that we have that we can give to our acceleration centers that do most of the standard operations, so that we're freed up to do consulting. So ours is more of trying to save our group time so that we can do some of the more complex consulting aspects of the job.
Awesome. And I'll let any of you jump in on this next one. So the next question we have is that for data analytics, how much hands-on work with data management's involved in that course? And do you need to have prior experience or prior knowledge prior to taking a course and being able to succeed in a data analytics or data management class?
I can kind of speak to the prior experience aspect. Prior to joining the MAS program and the data analytics concentration, I had absolutely zero experience with any sort of data tools outside of Excel. So that's one great thing that the MAS program does, is they come in with that assumption that you know nothing, and they really teach you from the ground up and give you a really strong foundation for some of the tools that you'll work with throughout the course. And the professors are very engaging. For example, I remember one of my courses, the professor would teach for about the first 15, 20 minutes, and then he would walk around and facilitate with students and interact with students, 2 or 3 times a week to, help and ensure that you're learning the material and making sure that you're catching on and that, no one falls behind.
Great. How hands-on is it? So anybody, so how hands-on are the classes as you learn and you learn the new tools and the processes and things like that?
Yeah, so my class, and I think it varies a little bit, but my class specifically, we took our notes in the same kind of software that we would actually be doing our homework in. So it was really easy to on the fly, watching, the presentation and the teacher presenting and then repeating and practicing. And I think another thing that was really helpful is that we have labs. So every week you'd have a lab after your class or somewhere in the middle of your classes where you could go and actually kind of work through either what you did in class or what the next homework assignment would be. Because again, professors recognize that we're not here to be professional, data scientists and coding. So there's a lot of opportunities to ask for help, and it starts very foundational before it really before they really let that leash go.
Awesome. Darian, Kaylee, anything else to add? Okay. Next question is for Mia and Colin. Is it so if interested in a career in deal advisory or M&A due diligence, is a CPA necessary?
I know specifically for me, it is required once you get to a certain level. I'm not 100% sure what that is, but I know that it is required. And I believe for a lot of the big four, if you're doing anything hands-on specifically related to accounting, it is required. I don't know if Mia, if there's different requirements at PwC.
Yeah, it's the same thing. So I think it phases in, from what I've heard, is it phases in at the manager level. So essentially you would be locked in at a senior level forever if you wouldn't have your CPA. So I do know people who get in those situations that haven't done it, who are then, doing what Darian said, and they're just grinding, and then also trying to, do late night studying on the weekends, train ride home. So definitely, if that's something that you're interested in, be aware for your long-term plans as well, that at the manager level, which usually comes in around I would say 5, 6, maybe 7 years of being somewhere, that you would probably need to have your CPA by.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I would strongly encourage is that when you're still in the learning mode and the learning environment, take advantage of your time and also the resources that you have available, and just knock it out. Just get the CPA exam out of the way, because once you start your career, to your point, Mia, life gets in the way, and it gets really, really hard and time consuming. And so I think that's good advice. So Darian and Kaylee, if choosing the tax concentration, would the student still have broad enough knowledge and to be prepared to take the CPA exam?
Yes, absolutely. Rig's one of the harder sections, so set up great for rig. Also, the classes don't differ vastly from audit to tax concentration, as I understood it. My roommates and I were taking 1 or 2 classes, maybe 3, that were a little different, but I still took a lot of financial statement analysis and what Colin was talking about earlier with the hedge fund analysis and tax classes and all of that good stuff. So I had a wide variety of classes, and during my master's year, there was 2 or 3 concentrations in tax, but tax incorporates a lot of different information. So I felt set up to ace the CPA.
There you go. Darian, what about you? I know you passed it.
Yeah, was the question, is the tax concentration required, or what was the question?
Well, so if you're wanting a career in tax and you have a tax concentration, do you feel prepared to meet all the requirements of the CPA exam?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Piggyback what she said. I think the difference, so I was a real estate concentration, but in terms of tax, I believe all the concentrations in general, it's only a 2 to 3 class difference. But besides that, you're still getting the same core classes that you would need for the CPA, regardless of what your concentration is. So I don't necessarily feel like that'd be a barrier. If anything, it'd be a benefit, because like she mentioned, the tax portion is the hardest. So having that extra exposure wouldn't hurt as much.
Okay, great. I think we got a question or time for one more question. And so besides Python and Tableau, are there any tools, for example, SQL or Alteryx, that you'd recommend a student to learn to prepare to work in M&A or tax? So that, open it up to anybody.
I would say Excel. I don't think that was on the list, right? But you need to know how to do things in Excel. And I will say how much you need to learn in the forefront. I've met people who just started in my group, and I am kind of shocked by how little they know how to do things in Excel. But because I actually did take a full class that was on Excel, and I think there is a similar one at Illinois as well. But I will say get comfortable being Excel, because you will spend a lot of time in those sheets, honestly.
I agree 100%. Whether it's Pepsi or Energizer. Yeah, we had Tableau and Cognos and things like that, but oftentimes you're dumping data out of there and then manipulating it within Excel. And so you need to get really, really good at it. In the smaller companies that maybe can't afford the investment in some of the other software tools and things like that, rely extensively on Excel. And so I think that's great advice. Kaylee, Colin, Darian.
I was going to echo Mia, but I also wanted to stress that like getting an education from Illinois requires you to think critically, work with different people, and learn. So Excel, yes, all these great tools and platforms for softwares are really handy to know, but I've learned all of my specific tax softwares on the job, and just knowing how to learn from someone, be coachable, think critically is the most important. So I wouldn't stress out about trying to master all of the softwares that you'll see, because I've learned so much in the first year, and most of the tax stuff is firm specific.
I think that's great advice. Darian, Colin, anything else to add?
No, I just wanted to say Excel one more time. Only because I spent probably 95% of my days at times in Excel for like weeks. So I would just say get used to it, and just piggyback what you said, Kaylee said about the other softwares. Like, the idea of it is for the first, basically by doing the MAS program, you'll be able to see the softwares at least one time. So when you start the job, it's not like your first time seeing it, you're not learning from scratch. So I think that was a huge benefit. And just keep in mind that once you start these jobs too, for the most part, the first few weeks are going to be training, and they're going to teach you what you need to know. But I think doing the MAS program and being exposed to different softwares ahead of time is clutch. So it'll be a big benefit and help you in the long run.
Yeah, agreed. A lot of the specific things you'll learn on the job. However, having exposure, it will be a differentiator to be able to speak to some of the things. Not a lot of other people will be able to say they know how to, function, Tableau, Alteryx, things of that nature coming right out of college, especially as an accounting major. So being able to speak to those things is huge in setting you up for your future career.
Awesome. Actually, I'm going to try to squeeze one more question in on you guys. So what qualities are the big four firms seeking from MAS, MSA, IMSA graduates? And do you think that one firm looks for one thing and another firm looks for another, as you went through the interview experience? And so what do you think they're looking for?
I will say, like, when you get your interview, right, the reason you're even sitting there in that room with a person is because they've already pretty much vetted out your resume. They see you go to a good school, your GPA is right? Like, what matters most between that room and when you're walking in the door at a big four is your interview, and it's your soft skills that we've said multiple times. It's all kind of getting to know you, getting to know the things that you do, the things you like, how you are in a difficult situation, when a problem comes up. And I think, really just to like hone in on problem solving skills and the ways that you can interact. I think if you're able to sit down across from someone you don't even know, never met them, day one, and it's a conversation and you're genuinely just talking to that person, you're not trying to like sell yourself. Like, yes, there's a little bit of that. Like, you obviously want to paint yourself in a good picture, but you want to be able to just talk to them as if there were another classmate, as if there were a professor. I think that's the biggest thing is those soft skills.
Awesome. We got time for one more person to jump in.
One thing I'll say is, a willingness to learn. A lot of these accounting jobs require you to learn a lot on the job because the MAS gives you a great foundation. And, an undergraduate accounting degree gives you a great foundation, but there's just a lot of things that you can't cover in 4 years. So just a willingness to learn and being able to express that's really important to the big four firms and other firms as well.
Awesome. Well, hey, that wraps up our panel discussion. Thanks you guys so much. Mia, Darian, Kaylee, Colin, thanks so much for carving out some time for us. I learned a lot. I know that your experiences and sharing those experiences are going to go a long way for those that are trying to make a decision as to whether or not to continue their education and whether or not to choose Gies. And so now for the audience, thanks so much for joining us. We hope that our discussions provided you with the information that's going to help you make the decisions about your career path. The MAS, MSA, IMSA programs do set you up for success. It gives you options and provides a depth and breadth of learning that's going to open up a lot of doors for you and make you very valuable to your organization. Accounting's a profession that's always looking to the future. Accounting's focused on what we need to know 20 years from now and how we're going to get people ready for it. And that's what we do at Gies. And what's extremely valuable about our MAS and MSA and IMSA programs is that we are purposeful about thinking ahead so that our students are prepared and so that they're positioned to be successful and to seize on opportunities. And so best of luck to all of you as you take those steps, and let us know if we can help in any way as you make your decisions. And so thanks for joining us tonight.